Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I'm bringing you another great guest. His name is Mr. Samuel Johnson, and he runs a company called Travel Fit Company. And he specializes in helping high-performing professionals with tools and information on how to increase and sustain energy, get more sleep, lose weight if you want to, and do this all without slowing down at work. In other words, many of us are just pushing that red line on the tachometer every single day. And we just keep doing it. Sometimes we don't even know why we're doing it. We just do it because it's us, right? And then you get to the kind of the end or throughout and you're getting tired and you realize, you know what? I haven't been taking care of myself the way I'm supposed to. My professional life's a little in line maybe, or out of whack a bit. My personal life might be in line or out of whack. You know, things are just kind of off, if you will. And we're starting to head toward burnout. We know it or don't know it. We kind of keep going. We feel stressed. We feel tired. We don't eat right. We don't sleep well. All of that stuff kind of ends up kind of catching up to us. And, you know, from somebody who has experienced burnout, I can tell you it's not fun and it takes a lot longer to recover than most people think. So I wanted to do this on this particular podcast and bring Samuel in because he's an expert on this. And I wanted to do this because, you know, a lot of times people don't really think about this until it kind of catches them. We're just so driving it. And this has everything to do with revenue growth. It has everything to do with profit growth. It has everything to do with increasing sales. And the reason I'm bringing this forth is it's such a needed resource. And sometimes people just don't want to talk about it. So, but the reality is, listen to this. We went a little longer than we do on normal podcasts on this because there was so much great content and information and tools and tips that he gave that I wanted to get as much put into this as possible. So let me know what you think about it. Let's go talk to Samuel right now. Here we go. Samuel, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Well, you are welcome. Now, I was so excited to have you here because, you know, we have a lot of high-performing CEOs and business owners and people who listen to this podcast. And, you know, most of them, quite frankly, work a lot and they deplete their energy. They don't get enough sleep. They eat out in restaurants or whatever. They're not eating appropriately, right? And it's kind of slowing them down at work. And I know some people's heads are bobbing up and down now as they're listening to this. So, and you are I would say a person in your company, Travel Fit Company, that equips high professionals or high performing professionals with these tools to increase and sustain energy, get more sleep, lose weight if they want to, without slowing down at work. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir. Yep, that's exactly what we do. I love the word that you used in regards to tools, because that's exactly what we do is we help high performers, whether it's a CEO or it's an executive or a sales professional, build their own personal toolbox to be able to go through their days and do what they need to do with their health without sacrificing time away from work.
So that almost sounds too good to be true, I bet, to some of these people who are listening. It certainly was me, you know, so for years I was that guy that worked, you know, usually 7 days a week. It was rare that I took a day off, and I would go for, you know, a year or so straight and then go, my God, I need a vacation or I need this, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And then I remember I went for almost 2 years straight. And then one day it was about 10 o'clock at night. I was sitting at my desk and I heard this really weird voice talking to me and this really weird string of energy coming by saying, "You're burnt." you're done. It was that type of thing. And I burned out. And it was so weird because I couldn't go back to work. I mean, I went back to work, but I couldn't get back to work. It was just like, it was like slugging uphill in the mud in a rainstorm trying to get to the top again. It was just the weirdest thing. And it took me about a year and a half before I came back and was able to go back to capacity. And that was only because I took 6 months off. Right. So why do you think people do that to themselves? Like, what, in other words, what makes somebody want to get to that place where they don't have the energy any longer, the sleep, the loss of weight, slow down, and eventually the body's telling them, hey, but they don't pay attention to it, and then they just do what I did. In your experience, what makes people do that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's interesting because the body always gets what it wants one way or another. So it will force you to do what it wants to do whenever it wants you to do it. And I think that what I've seen with high performing individuals, what will lead somebody to that place is one of two things. So if you're a CEO, if you own your own business, or you're just running a company, a lot of times it can be high pressure to grow and really short timelines to be able to reach goals that are probably difficult to reach, right? You're a high performer, you're shooting for the stars, right? You want to grow the business, you want to serve as many people as you can, and you want to be able to serve the marketplace. And so what happens is things begin to stack up in your days. And then not only do you have your work life, you probably have a personal life too. Whether you're married, you have kids, you have a spouse or a partner. And before you know it, you wake up and you're bombarded by emails. So you go right into work mode. You got to deal with the kids, get them off to school. You work for 10, 12 hours a day. You got to pick the kids up. And then you get home and you're wiped. And it ends up being this never ending cycle. So I think that one of the things that I've seen a lot of is very, very aggressive timelines on goals, which forces people to then push themselves to the limits. And the mindset there is, okay, well, once I reach this goal, or once I get to this place, then I will stop and slow down and take care of myself. But you know better than anybody else, and we all know as high performers that there's just going to be one other thing that you're going to start chasing.
Right. Yeah.
And so the key is to figure out, well, how do we manage it along the way? How do we do both things at the same time?
So I have a question on this, because I mean, even in my life now, as I get older, as my mother used to say to me, it's too bad that energy's wasted on the youth and aged, wisdom's wasted on the old. Right. And I never got it when I was in my, teens and 20s, but now I'm starting to get it now that I'm getting up there a bit. So is it like we're all rushing to a goal as a high performer? We think, and this is my theory, I don't know, I want your feedback. My theory is we're running to goals that we really don't know we want or don't want. And so we think when we're going to get to that goal that we're going to have this feeling of accomplishment, or this feeling like I've arrived. And I can tell you in most cases when I've arrived, it wasn't really that great at that point, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of question, like, why did I do all this? Why did why did I miss my birthday when my child was waiting for me to come home and, give daddy a hug, right? And I would justify it in my mind, well, I'm doing it for her, or, them and this type of thing. In reality, as I get older, I reflect back on it and I go, I was just trying to solve some childhood wounds, that maybe I was never going to be good enough. You know what I mean? And so making $1 million a year wasn't good enough. You got to make 2 million, you got to make 3 million, you got to make 5 million, right? It was one of those perpetual things. So do you find a common thread through most high performers that as they're chasing things and they get there, it's like, I think Tony Robbins said, oh, this is all there is, right? When you get there, right? Do you find that as a thread?
Yeah, 100%. I've spent some time around some really successful business owners that have, surpassed the 8-figure mark, surpassed the 9-figure mark in terms of revenue per year, and have done some really incredible things in really short amounts of time. And I can tell you that they did the same thing. They got there and they were like, what was all this for?
Right.
Similar to what you said. I've missed my daughter's recitals, or I missed sporting events, or I wasn't there to wake them up or put them to bed because I was at work. And I think that it's a question that we can go really deep on. And we could probably talk about this for the entire hour, but a lot of us find identity in work, right? We find identity in work, we find identity in our accomplishments, and we find this dopamine hit from reaching specific goals. But then once that dopamine hits and then it goes away, it's like, okay, what's next? And then we start chasing the next target. We start chasing the next target. And it's interesting that you had mentioned that, yeah, you're probably trying to heal some childhood wounds. For me, how I'll give you the quick story on how I found myself in this position is my father failed many times in business, and he struggled to provide for his family. And I grew up watching him beg my mom for money and not be able to provide. I watched him cry many times because he wasn't able to give what he thought was what we wanted in terms of money, and he wasn't able to provide. And so from a very young age, at 14 years old, when I started work, I went into the same mode. I struggled for many years. I was always working out of scarcity. I said no to so many things early on in my life because I was like, the next dollar, the next dollar, the next dollar, the next dollar. And so I've had to do a lot of work myself of realizing, okay, well, who am I separate from work and my accolades and my achievements and everything that I want to do in the world? Who am I as a man outside of performance and work? And as I started to do that work and uncover who I am, and was able to identify that my worth isn't defined by work and accomplishments in work, and it really is just is about my impact on this earth. And the more important things to me are love and connection to the people that I love. That was when I was able to start to shift away from constantly chasing the next thing. And so, yeah, I think it's really common that you'll see a lot of high performing individuals do that. They get there and they're like, okay, what's next? And then some people will throw it away.
Yeah, I would call it addiction. It's like a form of isms, right? Alcoholism, workisms, whatever, workaholic, right? I mean, I have a very good friend who, he built $1 billion worth of companies and lost almost all of it overnight, including his family. And he went on a quest, like, what is the purpose of this whole, thing, right? And that sort of started cueing me into what I was doing, because I was similar in the personality side. But a lot of high performers have that addiction, I think, really, when it comes down to it. But I love the question you asked. We're speaking with Mr. Samuel Johnson. He owns a company called Travel Fit Company. He helps people increase and sustain their energy, get more sleep, lose weight, live healthier, and be more focused without having to slow down at work, which is the key for all of us. And I think you asked an amazing question, is who am I separate from work? I can imagine there's some person right now in their vehicle listening to this crying, because it's a really good question. Like, who are we, separate from our work? And I think I've had to learn this kind of the hard way. And I'm sure that you've helped people do this, that your worth is not defined by your work. Because here's what I've learned. If your worth is defined by your work and it doesn't go well, the work, and as an entrepreneur, it's not always going to go great. It's just not.
Right.
Right. I mean, I've had partners embezzle money out of companies that I've been involved in, right? It's just not gonna, so if we define ourselves based on the performance of that business or that work, then when things don't go well, things are not going to go well in the rest of our lives. Yeah. So how does one separate themselves from work and from, their true self, if you will, if that's what it should be called?
That's a really good question. For me, this was a spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. Because for many years, the short story of it is I was raised Catholic and didn't really have a relationship with God. And then I became an atheist at 12 years old and really drew away and found my identity personally in things from the world. For me, it was work and it was women. And then I grew up with a lot of pain and trauma in my household. And so my escape was drugs and alcohol and work.
Right.
So if I wasn't working, it was one of those things. And so I battled addiction to drugs, alcohol, pornography, and sex for many years, and as well as work. And then finally reached a breaking point where I said, I can't do this anymore. And then that was when God came in and saved my life and has taken me on this journey for the last 3 years of discovering who I am as a man or as a son of God. And so for me, it was a spiritual journey. And I think that to answer your question, I think that a lot of times what we have to do is pull back and start to ask some hard questions. Earlier, you said something that caught my ear. You said, a lot of us think that we're going to feel a certain way once we reach the mountaintop or once we reach a goal. And the reality is most of us have no idea how we actually want to feel.
Right.
We also don't know what we want. We think we have ideas, and a lot of those ideas tend to be influenced by other people, people that we look up to, people that we idolize. And so we start chasing things that are just an endless cycle that never bring us joy. They never bring us fulfillment. And so for somebody to be able to find themselves and find their identity outside of work, I think that's where we really have to step back and start to look at the heart, start to look at, what do I want to feel? Who am I as a man or as a woman outside of my performance and work? Who do I want to become as a father or as a wife, as a friend? And then begin to seek and get clarity on that. And if you have a spiritual life, obviously that's my recommendation, is to pursue that in one way or another and seek the answers in that realm. But maybe if you don't have a spiritual life, I think then it really comes down to starting to ask yourself some hard questions about, what is all this for? What happens when I get to this point and I reach this goal? I hit $100 million. I hit $1 billion. And then what? And then beginning to exhaust those answers.
Yeah, and I think they're great questions to ask. And this podcast is about revenue growth and growing your company and all that. And I think it's a really great question. And also that the answer is, it's not a bad thing to be a multi-billionaire. It really isn't, if we have joy and fulfillment in that, right? And because when you have lots of funds, you can do lots of great stuff for people. So the old money kind of magnifies the person, right? I mean, if the person is that giving type of person, when they get there, they usually are like, well, how many shoes can I wear? How many cars can I drive? Whatever. Like, let me go help this cause. Let me help that cause. And those are wonderful things. So there's nothing wrong. And I don't want anybody thinking, oh my gosh, we're beating up on people who grow, high performers.
No,
That's not
what
we're doing here. What we're doing is we're saying, okay, let's be in congruency with who we truly are, and then be a high performer. And there are some tools that you help people with. So let's talk about some of the tools. Like, all right, I want to be, pushing the red line all the time, right? I just, I'm revving the engine, that thing's going up, that tachometer is going right to the red line every single time. I'm not too far, so I'm going to burn out, but just far enough so I'm performing at a very high peak capacity. So what are some of the tools that people can use? Like, let's say I wanted to have a little bit more energy, for example.
Yeah, really good question. I love that you use the analogy of redlining, right? And so the way I explain energy is like this. We have an energy bank account. And in life and in business, most of the time, all we're doing is we're expending energy all day long. So on this podcast right now, we're expending energy. We're pouring into this podcast, right? You said that you were on multiple calls before this. You're expending energy on that, right? You're solving problems. You're helping people. You have a family, nonstop energy being spent. And so most of the time, what happens is people spend energy, they spend energy, and they spend energy, but they don't ever recover it. And so one of the easiest ways that you can recover energy throughout the day without it taking away from work is what I call micro deposits. And so finding simple ways that we can deposit into our energy through movement, breathing, hydration, or nutrition. So for example, after I get off this podcast, I may take 60 seconds and do some deep breathing. I may do 5 squats. I may go on a 5-minute walk just to be able to disconnect and recover some of that energy that I've just expended. And so I always look for little areas throughout our day that we can do micro deposits into our energy. after we get done completing tasks, projects, calls, or meetings. And that's the saying that we want to look at. After I finish this meeting, I will go for a 5-minute walk. Because that's something that's going to be consistent in your schedule that we can then place that new habit behind. Now, another thing that we want to consider is how do we start our days with energy and then be able to sustain that throughout the day. And so one of the best things that we can do as high performers in the morning is get sunlight. It's free, and it's one of the best ways to be able to charge your system up and to be able to sustain energy throughout the day, because it's going to elevate cortisol levels, which is a good thing. That's what you want early on in the day. Sunlight is also going to help clear adenosine, which is essentially the molecule that makes you feel sleepy. It will clear that out early on in the day, and that will help bring your energy levels up and set your circadian rhythms. And so if there's one thing that I encourage every single client that comes into work with us is find a way to get sunlight in the morning. If it's sunny out, no cloud coverage, 2 minutes, you're rocking and rolling. If it's cloudy out, probably more like 10 minutes is going to be ideal to be able to get that light, because you're still getting UV light coming through the clouds. But sunlight's one of my favorites in regards to increasing energy.
So what about the people who go, hey, I live in, New England or Canada, and in the middle of the winter, it's snowing. There's no sunlight out. What do they do?
Yeah. So even if it is cloudy, you would just want to spend more time out. Now, I know like up in Canada, you can get into like negative 30 degrees, negative 40 degrees.
Right.
I have some friends that live up there. And so I'm not necessarily encouraging you to go and stand out in that weather to be able to get sunlight. You can get artificial light, but the time that it takes for artificial light to actually trigger circadian rhythm and to trigger cortisol is significantly longer. So if we were outside, it's typically like 2 to 10 minutes. If it's sunny out, if it's cloudy, again, it's like more like 10 to 30 minutes. However, if we're using artificial light, that can be upwards of like 6 hours that it can take for that to take place. So let's say that you're in the UK where it's cloudy out quite a bit. You would just want to spend more time outside in the morning. So you can double down, you can go outside and get a walk. Do not wear sunglasses while you're doing that, and that's going to do it for you.
Interesting. So you had said movement, breathing, hydration. Was there a fourth one that I missed?
Nutrition.
That one I'd like to dig into.
Which is always the most difficult.
Yeah, that's why I want to dig into it. So we're speaking with Mr. Samuel Johnson. He owns a company called Travel Fit Company. And let's talk about nutrition, because a lot of people are confused on what nutrition really means. They think like eat a balanced diet, and anytime you read something, it's like, oh, that was good 2 years ago. That's no longer good, now, or whatever, whatever. So what would be some easy nutritional type of routine that somebody could embrace, if you will?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is I am not a medical doctor. And so this is not nutritional advice. These are just suggestions that you can consider. The best thing that you can always do is get blood work done and then talk to your physician and see what your body needs. So the first step that I recommend anybody take is get some labs done. That way you can actually design a protocol that's specific for you, rather than just reading something on the internet or seeing something on Instagram and going, okay, I'm going to do that, and then hope that it works. So get some blood work done. That's the best thing that you can do. If we're not going to do blood work, then one of the first places that we want to start is protein. So most people lack in protein. And so finding ways that we can consistently get protein in throughout the day is going to be huge. Now, for a lot of high performers, people that are really busy, what I find is most people will tend to skip breakfast, right? Just maybe doesn't make sense with your schedule, and maybe your appetite doesn't kick in more around like 10 to 12 p.m. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that if you are skipping breakfast, that we're starting our day with quite a bit of protein, and then making sure that as we go through the day, we're getting consistent protein at least every 2 to 4 hours. But protein is going to be one of the most important because it has a high thermic effect on the body, which means that it requires more energy to break down, and it's going to help build muscle. So if you're resistance training, it's super important. Not only that, it's going to help you stay full, which will help prevent you from overeating. Now, one of the things that you had mentioned, right, is people that are going out to client dinners, client lunches, you're always on the go. Maybe you're stopping and you're eating fast food on a regular basis. And so what I typically will recommend for people is two things. Number one is that we want to make sure that we have higher protein snacks and or protein shakes with us at all times. So for example, if you're on the go or you are in the office all day long, keeping a protein shake or beef jerky, if you're okay eating processed foods, protein bar, you could even do like little packets of tuna, something of that nature. Keeping those on hand and close by are going to be really, really helpful for you to be able to turn to that rather than turning to whatever's in the vending machine or just in a drive-through. The second thing is when you eat out, the big thing we have to consider is that fast food and or eating at a restaurant, meals are always going to be higher in fat and carbohydrate. They're going to be lower in protein and higher in fat and carbohydrate. And there's nothing wrong with fat or carbs. I'm not demonizing those. We just want to be aware of that. That way we can backfill it later on. And so ultimately what we have to do is we have to look at how we can make decisions on the go at these restaurants where we can focus more on protein and then maybe make decisions that allow us to eat less carbs and less fat at those restaurants. So for example, if you were to go to Chick-fil-A, if you have one of those near you, rather than getting a spicy chicken sandwich and waffle fries, you could do a grilled chicken sandwich with some grilled nuggets and a small side salad. The big thing to realize is that you can make good decisions anywhere that you go. It's just a matter of having the knowledge of how to do it and what to look for and what to stay away from.
Makes a lot of sense. Samuel, if somebody wants to get a hold of your company, how do they do so?
So one of the easiest ways, you can go to www.travelfitco.com. And then you can submit a form where you can opt into our email list. If you want to reach me directly, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. On Instagram, it's at SammyGFit, SammyG And then on LinkedIn, it's Samuel Johnson. But social media is going to be the best way to do that.
Awesome. So let's go. I want to go to hydration because a lot of people like hydration is like, it's key to our bodies. We all know that, but people, I mean, yeah. I do so many, read, and it's like, this person says you got to drink this many, gallons of water. And this person says, no, don't do that. And this person says, you'll kill yourself if you drink too much water. I mean, there's all kinds of things out there, right? And they're probably all true in some capacity and not in others. What is like hydration, and what type of hydration do people, if they want to have more energy, what should they be doing?
Mm-hmm. So hydration is not just water. I think that's the first place that we go wrong. Hydration or dehydration, there's three things that we're looking at. We're looking at water intake, then we're looking at salt intake, and then we're looking at electrolytes or minerals. And so it's really important to make sure that we're covering all three of those. Now, I'm not recommending that you begin to consume salt, but most people tend to turn away from salt. They think it's bad because that's what we've been told for many, many years. And it just depends on their circumstances. So again, I always would reference, talk to your physician before you make any changes, and then consult with somebody on blood work to know what you really need. But when we're looking at hydration, we want to make sure that we're addressing those three areas. So for example, if you're able to wake up and start your day with 12 to 24 ounces of water, that's going to be great. But you're also going to want to make sure that you're getting some sort of preferably pink Himalayan sea salt or an electrolyte powder. Because if you drink too much water, that can tend to flush out electrolytes. And so then we get this mineral deficiency, or we get an imbalance of electrolytes, which you can find people that may drink a gallon of water, but they're still dehydrated or they're still cramping. So those are the three areas we have to look at. How much water are you consuming? I typically will recommend that people start just at 100 ounces a day or 3 liters. And an easy way to be able to implement that into your day, especially if you tend to forget to drink water throughout the day, at each meal that you eat, drink a liter of water. A liter of water is about 33 ounces of water. So that's a really good place to start. And then from there, then we want to look at your salt intake. So if you can, just salt your food. Or what you can do is you can just take a pinch of sea salt and put it in your water, and that's going to help you increase your sodium intake. Mm-hmm. The body requires about 4,000 milligrams of sodium a day just in itself. And then the electrolytes, you can get electrolytes through food, but another really simple way for somebody that's a high performer to do that is just an electrolyte powder.
And what a lot of people don't realize is your cells need this. Your heart needs this. Your nervous system needs this. It's not something that's not needed. And I agree. Get lab work done first. I've done this, and then I've done micronutrient tests and all kinds of things. And it's very interesting to find out, wow, you're not getting enough, in my case, vitamin D, right? That type of thing. Or I'm not getting enough vitamin B12 or whatever. And as soon as I started changing that around, I'm like, okay, my energy's better. Right. So if we're going to continue to keep, and especially as we age, our bodies change. I mean, so it's like, when we're 20 and we're 55, it's a very different body. Doesn't mean it's good or bad, it just means we're aging in some capacity. Right. So, it's very interesting.
Before we move on, I want to hit that vitamin D comment real quick. So I actually just got blood work done last week, and I am very, very, very intentional about getting sunlight in every day. I would like to think that I eat relatively well in terms of foods that are going to have some vitamin D in them. And I still came up at 27 out of 100 in terms of a scale. So my vitamin D is really low. And vitamin D is the most important vitamin in your body. It's the only vitamin that our body makes. And most people are running really, really low on it. And so that is an easy supplement that you can implement into your regular routine that's going to help bring your energy levels up. And if it's winter, so like usually between October to March, and if you're not in the sun as much during the winter, then I would recommend somewhere between 5,000 IUs to 10,000 IUs a day.
Yep.
But if you can get your vitamin D levels up, that's going to help hormonal function. It's going to help energy levels, and it's super simple to be able to take every single day. So
I
just wanted to hit that real quick because it's a simple one to do.
I agree. And I do it sublingually. I just take a liquid and squirt it in my mouth, and doesn't taste all that great, guys and gals. But the reality is that it does work, and it works great.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to do. You can drop it into a smoothie. You can do anything you want really with the thing. But it does make a big difference. And I've seen studies lately that show that it's also now with COVID, it's almost like they're thinking, hey, this might help prevent, really severe things with COVID. Now, again, I'm not a doctor either. I'm just, it's two guys talking, right? I want to go to the last one. Like, morning routines, I think, are so important. And like, let's talk about, because everything I hear you say is like, okay, if I eat better, I get, I breathe better, I move more, I'm taking care of everything. I'm going to lose some weight. I'm going to, my body's just naturally going to go to where it's going to be. And I don't have to slow down because my energy levels are going to go up. It makes total sense to me.
Yep.
What about the mind? Like, people, because sometimes people are like, oh, mind, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to study that. I don't want to do anything about that. And I just want to focus on making more money. And what I tell people is that's one of the primary reasons you make or don't make more money, is how we think. Yep. So if you wouldn't mind, in that kind of the closing, what should people do? Sort of like, are there tools that people can do, or something that they can do just to kind of like get them kind of oriented in the right direction during the day?
For mindset?
Yeah. To keep more of because look, stuff's going to happen, folks. We all know that. I mean, we're all in business. I mean, I always say business is easy until you add people, right? And then it just kind of, people have different desires and wants and needs, and they do stuff, right? And kind of messes things up here and there. But that's where we can step up and learn new things and grow, right? Because that's what we do as entrepreneurs. But what can somebody do if they want to be a high-performing professional and they want to keep going? They want to keep toward moving the red line, the tachometer, if you will, those RPMs up. But they're going to run into stuff. So how do they kind of do mind prevention, or, negative mind prevention or something? I'm trying to figure, and maybe there's no way. So I'm asking you because you're the expert.
Yeah. So a couple things that come to mind for me are journaling, which may sound like a bit of an odd answer, but I think that for a lot of high performers, a lot of times what we do is we just bottle things up. right? We just get punched in the face all day long, and then we just bottle it up and we don't process it. And so from an emotional perspective, I think that the number one skill that anybody can learn is how to regulate emotions. Because if things go wrong and then that throws your whole day off, you're losing time, you're losing productive hours, you're losing the ability to lead. And so for me, what I have found to be one of the best tools that I use every day, I've been doing it for over 2.5 years, is journaling. So what I do personally is at the end of every day, I do a journal. I'll recommend an app. I have no affiliation with this app. It's called Day One. It's an awesome app. You can voice record into it. You can upload pictures. What it will do is it keeps logs of your journals. And then as time goes on, it will pop up previous journals that you had a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So this offers a couple different things. Number one, it allows you to be able to process. Most of us are running nonstop and we never slow down to just process what's happened. And so just stopping and getting everything out of your head is going to help big time. It will help you be able to see clearly, think more clearly, and to be able to process what's actually happening rather than bottling it up. And then the other thing that it allows you to be able to learn and reflect. And it allows you to be able to see things that are going well and what's not going well. So for somebody that doesn't journal, it could take you a month, 2 months, 3 months to learn a lesson because you don't have that awareness of what's going on. But for me, because I journal every day, I might be able to look back and see common themes and threads and how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling. And then I can start to ask myself questions. So if I read a journal or if I've journaled the past 3 days that I'm low on energy and that maybe I'm feeling just a bit down, I can start to think about, okay, well, what's going on? Is there anything that's changed in my routines? Is this a certain time of year? Has things happened in my past? And so journaling is one of the best tools in my opinion. The second thing that I would encourage is to get clarity on your vision, not only for your professional life, but also for your personal life. We talked about this earlier, but most people don't know what they want to feel. They don't know what they want. They just have ideas. And so stopping and getting some time to get clarity, writing down your vision, not only of what you want to achieve, but who you are becoming. So for example, the two most powerful words in the English language, in my opinion, are I am. Because what comes after those two words describes how you think about yourself. And so doing work on your identity and beginning to speak life over yourself and continuing to develop the person that you want to become is going to be super helpful. So for example, every morning you could take 2 or 3 minutes and you can read over your vision. You can read some I am statements. Like, I am a man that takes time to slow down and process how I feel. If I feel overwhelmed or if I feel emotional, rather than just bottling it up. And the more you start to speak that out over yourself, you're going to program your subconscious mind, and then you will begin to follow that up. So those are probably the two tools that come to mind. One is done in the morning and one's done in the evening. So the vision, in terms of reading over that, would be done in the morning, and the journaling would be done at night. And that's going to also allow you to get better sleep, which is my third tool, is get more sleep. Because sleep deprivation will influence every aspect of your life, and it will distort your ability to be able to actually understand and perceive what's going on from an emotional level, spiritual level, from a physical perspective. And so if you're sleep deprived, which most people are, it's going to make everything harder. It's just the reality of it. There's tons and tons of science. And so if you can find ways to get better sleep, and we can talk on that if you would like, if you can find ways to get more sleep, the more rested you are, the better you will be able to manage your emotions and your mindset, and especially when things are not going well.
Well, you know what? We normally don't go this long on the podcast, but I want to take a little extra time. Let's talk about sleep because it's so important for people. How to put some tools to get some better sleep.
Okay. So the two main drivers of sleep are light and temperature. So to keep it simple, in the morning, we want to increase our body temperature. One of the main reasons that people actually wake up is because your body temperature rises 1 to 3 degrees. And then at night, it's going to fall 1 to 3 degrees. And so in the morning is important because it kind of sets the tone for the night. In the morning, we want to raise our body temperature. So we can do that through exercise. In my opinion, one of the best ways to be able to do that, which will also lead to more mental toughness and resilience, is through cold exposure. So a cold shower or deliberate cold plunging, like in a cold body of water. And then we want to consume sunlight. Now, on the flip side of that, at night, what we want to do is we want to try to develop some behaviors where we're able to decrease our body temperature. And heat decreases your body temperature. And so if you have a sauna at your house, doing 10 to 15 minutes in the sauna would be a great idea. Maybe you don't have a sauna, so you could do a warm shower for 10 minutes. That's going to help trigger your body to cool down. The second thing to get better sleep is to decrease light consumption. So just how much artificial light you're taking in. So an hour before bed, what I would encourage you to do, this is a super simple action that you can take, is turn out all overhead lights. So the only lights in your house would be eye level, preferably below eye level. So lamps, candlelight, or night lights. Light, if you consume light at night, it will shut down the production of melatonin. And we don't want to do that. And most of us are on screens, we're looking at phones, we're working super late at night, there's overhead lights on. Even if you are wearing blue light blocking glasses, you're still consuming light. And so those would be the two things that I would really look to do that you can take immediate actions on. If you can do some cold exposure in the morning and get some sunlight, that's going to help you wake up. It's going to set your circadian clocks. And then in the evening, decrease the amount of light that you're consuming that's coming in through your eyes. Turn all overhead lights out an hour before bed. And then do a warm shower. That will help. One of the other things that I want to say here real quick that would be really useful for a lot of high performers is the journaling. And we already talked about it, but most of the time people struggle to fall asleep. You're tossing and turning about everything that happened in the day. Maybe you are, or maybe you're just exhausted in general and you pass out. But if you struggle to fall asleep at night and stay asleep at night, doing some journaling is going to be really, really easy for you. It's going to be an easy way to be able to get everything out of your head and process the day. That way you're not getting into bed and tossing and turning about what went right, what didn't get done, and then essentially just in a state of stress while you're in bed. There's a ton of other steps that you can take, but those would be the two main things that I would do. And the next would be breathing. So just doing some simple breath work. My favorite breath work or my favorite breathing method to do before bed is called 4-7-8 breathing. So you do a 4-second inhale through the nose. You would hold for 7 seconds. And then you would exhale for 8 seconds. And you're going to exhale through your mouth and you're going to make a whoosh sound. So it would be like whoosh. So every night for 6 to 8 minutes, I put my feet up on the wall. So I lie down on the ground. I put my feet up on the wall. And then I do 4-7-8 breathing. And it's one of the best ways for me to down-regulate my nervous system and to relax, to get some oxygen and clear my mind for the day. And then I'm able to sleep really well.
Samuel, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I know other people who are listening to this are going, whoa, wow. And so, you know, they know how to get a hold of you. We'll put the show notes, we'll put the contacts in the show notes for everybody. I really appreciate you being here. I'd love to have you back on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast in the future if you'd like to. And
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, great. So again, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Wow. I got pages of notes and I won't do a 15-minute debrief on this whole thing, but I would recommend you listen to this over and over again. There were so many great nuggets of wisdom, and practicality, I would say, is the word, right? Practical tools, tips, things that were working in there. And here's the deal. Morning routine, night routine. If you talk to any, or most, I should say, not all, but most billionaires and people who have been high performers and keep going, they have morning routines that set them up. They have evening routines or night routines that set them up for success for the next day. people who are high performers, who are doing well, who are not burning out, they know these tools, if you will. They know these processes, and they utilize them to get more energy into their life. Now, the really crazy part about this is when we get clear on our identity, clear on the vision, clear on the process, clear on the tools, a lot of stuff just starts falling in line that we were like, oh my gosh, this is magical. It's about performing and being able to be happy in that process. Not just getting at the end of a goal and go, oh, okay, I got there. That was great. Let me move on to the next goal. Or, oh, I got there. Geez, that wasn't really worth the energy or the effort I put into that. I know we've all done that. I've done that myself. And so what we want to do is we want to take care of ourselves as we're taking care of others as we go along. So reach out to Samuel. He's got some group coaching, some one-on-one coaching. I know he does. If you feel that's appropriate for you. If you like this content, let us know. If you love it, please give it a 5-star review. And I know it takes a few minutes. I know that's an ask of me, but I'm going to keep bringing this on this podcast, bringing great information, great guests to you. So if you would like to reward me back, that would be helpful. If there's a subject matter that you yourself feel you're an expert on, you want to be on the show, reach out to us. We'll review all of these requests. Or if you know somebody, recommend them. That would be helpful as well. And as always, if you want to reach out to us, you want to be in the top 1% of sellers, you want to grow the revenue in your company, the profit in your company, we help companies do that. So reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. For all other inquiries, you could reach out to us at YouMatter, YOUMATTER, at ceosalesstrategies.com. I'm also on LinkedIn at Doug Brown 123. And as always, as we sign off, go out, sell something, sell a lot of it, do it in a win-win fashion, help other people, help yourself, make the day a little brighter for other people, and you will win too. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. To your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success.